You're listening to the Beyond Sundays podcast. Each week we talk to people just like you from all over the world who share stories of God's faithfulness and His goodness too. Today we have the honor to hear from Avi Shalom, one of our ministry partners from Tents of Mercy. Located in Kiryat Yam on the Haifa Bay, Tents of Mercy is a Messianic ministry seeking Israel's salvation through planting Hebrew-speaking congregations in Yeshua's homeland, while also offering humanitarian aid as a warehouse and distribution center for those who are in need. Jake Mills, our missions and outreach pastor, along with Randy Turner, our executive pastor, sit down with Avi to talk about the partnership between Tents of Mercy and Beltway Park, which began way back in 2003. From generation to generation, y'all, lives have been impacted. People are being strengthened and then also being sent out. And we pray you'll be encouraged by this conversation as you hear about what God is doing in Israel. We also pray that you'll be blessed as Avi discusses what is Shabbat. As you know, Shabbat is a Hebrew word, which we understand as Sabbath or rest day. Unfortunately, its value and its significance has sort of gotten lost in translation this side of the world. But as sons and daughters of a good Father, it is so important we understand why Sabbath matters. We have a lot to learn from our Israeli brothers and sisters and their culture. Shabbat is important to the Father. Why? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. It's quite an invitation. So let's get to it.
Hey, welcome. This is Jake Mills, and I'm here with Randy Turner. I'm the missions and outreach pastor at Beltway. If you don't know me, Randy is our executive pastor, and we are on site in Israel, Petah Tikva, at our camp that we do on a yearly basis on our mission trip. And we've got a special guest with us, Avi Shalom. We have a long and deep relationship between our two congregations and between our two leaders, or our few leaders. And so, Avi, why don't you just start us out by telling us kind of the history of our relationship? And Randy's been a part of that since the very beginning, so he'll jump in and tell his side of the story. But why don't you start us off?
Well, it's a long history, like you mentioned. I am currently leading the congregation as a senior leader. But before me, the father and the pioneer of Tents of Mercy was Eitan Shishkov. And he and Pastor David got connected through a book that Don Finto had written about the relationship between Israel and the Gentile church that touched David McQueen at the time, Pastor David McQueen. And somehow the relationship was born out of that connection with Eitan Shishkov. And but it was more than just the personalities of the leaders. The communities got really connected, and really the relationship is explained not just through the few years of our connection through different partnerships that we have had. It's what's written all over the scriptures about how we have a mutual blessing to one another by serving one another as a Gentile church to a Messianic Jewish congregation. And so the relationship is very rich. We've been blessed to have over a decade of relationship that has grown steadily over the years, and we've seen much fruit come out of that. And we practically feel Beltway is a family to us. I was telling my son, the relationship is like a family member relationship, really. And we're so grateful that God has given us such a rich and deep relationship.
Yeah, it's really been incredible, and it really started out as, like Avi Shalom said, it started out with Pastor David reading a book, and then a group of our elders came over, and I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was 2003, right, and okay. Really in that journey really caught a heart for the Jewish people. And I think Pastor David has said it before. You know, the word talks about, Scripture talks about that you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And so he said, I'm going to be selfish and I want to be blessed. And so, but we really have, and a really sweet relationship has been born. And it has been scriptural, it's been biblical, but it's also been very, very personal for all of us. We've been in each other's homes, and our kids have been together, and we've been able to watch the Lord really develop a lasting brotherhood together and a family together, and we've journeyed a whole lot of life.
Absolutely.
From that, after that, we had a real sweet opportunity, partly because Pastor David and Eitan got together and were yapping about ministry and those kind of things, and started talking about kids and what was happening in the lives of kids in Israel in the congregations. And from that, actually, it was really their idea to start a kids camp over here. And because we'd been doing it, David kind of volunteered me. And so for what we would call in America would be a children's pastor. The children's pastor here was Katia Morrison. And so she and I began probably almost a year-long journey of planning our very first camp. And you probably have a little more to think about that and say about that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know how it would become. I mean, at first, we are in a small town called Kiryat Yam, and you guys are all from Abilene. And we thought, how is this going to work together? But I remember Katya envisioning this as if she has been in it. She was just living in that reality during that time, and she was explaining about the vision that she had. And so we didn't know what to expect. There was very little or very few camps like this where children were coming to a camp and let alone people from the United States and coming to work together with us. And so that was the first one. But I remember when it happened, it was just the best format to realize the relationship that God has given us with one another, not just to, a long distance relationship, but just to see and invest in each other's lives. You especially coming over to invest in our children. And it was an amazing, amazing, amazing experience, and it has not stopped since then. It's the highlight of our children. From now, I could say from generation to generation. A couple of our kids have gone through it and graduated through it. And now they're leading through it. It's a blessed, blessed time.
Yeah. Explain to us a little bit. I think for some of our listeners that don't know exactly Tents of Mercy and what that is. Is it one congregation coming to camp and we're doing this camp with you? Is it multiple congregations? How does that look?
Yeah. Well, Tents of Mercy in its vision is a congregation that is meant to be sending out people to establish other works. And so through Tents of Mercy, under Eitan's leadership, there has come about 4 congregations that came out of it. One in Haifa, one in Akko, and another one in Nazareth. And then we have another congregation that connected themselves to us. And so it's always been a vision of like an oasis. People come, get help, get strengthened, and then they're sent out to the visions that God has given them. So Tents of Mercy is a cluster of congregations located in the Galilee area where we feel that Yeshua still is actively working in the Galilee, and that's where our focus is. And so when we gathered for the camp, we invited all of our congregations from those branches to come. And that's what we've been doing that.
So within that, we're talking about a few congregations all coming to this one camp. I imagine there's some logistics stuff in that, some challenges, but what are some challenges that you faced that the two the Tents of Mercy congregations and Beltway, Randy, what are some challenges that we've faced over the years as we've done this camp together, and how do we overcome them?
Well, I'd say probably the first challenge we really had was just the language and trying to, all of us trying to work together in that. And but we quickly overcame that because there were enough English speaking. We certainly weren't bringing Hebrew speaking people over, and so but there were enough English speakers at Tents of Mercy that then we were able to kind of overcome that and have translators in place that really helped us. I would say that really was primary to probably the most obvious challenge that we faced early on. Then after that, really was just kind of that first couple of years, the logistics of planning a camp long distance on both of our on both sides. And but we really, once we kind of got into the groove and the routine, we really kind of overcame all that and really saw the fruit of the ministry and all of us coming together. One thing I would just add, just thinking about fruit, and as you were talking about this, was that the thing almost without fail, year after year, when I kind of go back, and we've done it now so many times, but we go back and we say, what was the highlight of our 2 weeks in Israel? Almost always, it's been camp. The Galilee is amazing. Going to the old city is amazing. People love that. Swimming in the Dead Sea or climbing to in Gedi are all really neat opportunities. Being baptized in the Jordan, those are all incredible opportunities. But it's almost without fail. People will say it was about camp. It was about being able to sit like we're doing tonight across the table from a Jewish brother or sister and hearing their story, and hearing how they came to Yeshua, hearing the struggle of that sometimes, of what that looked like in their life. But that really is almost, again, without fail, what is the highlight of people's trips. So much so that through the years, there have been many years that I will have people that can't take off work for whatever reason for 2 weeks, and they will come, serve at camp, and then turn around and fly back home. And they're okay with not going to the Dead Sea. They're okay with not seeing the sights and touring. And those things are all really critical and I think in our walk to really be able to connect to the promises of God for the Jewish people in so many ways, and to be able to sit and experience where Jesus walked. But it really has always been about people. And that is why people will come. If they can't take off 2 weeks, I've had many times that people will say, I just want to go to the camp and I'll fly back home. So,
amazing. Yeah. It's precious. I mean, it's we in Israel experience the challenge of language all the time. We have in our community around 19 people who came from different walks as Jews who returned the land. So we deal with a lot of language issues. But, in a sense, in the camps that I've seen and hearing from the children, it's almost like a benefit. I mean, many of the children have come to see beyond language people's love and heart. And I think this is one thing that you've mentioned, as a DNA coming from Beltway, you guys come not just for any visit of, the nation and the land, which is worthy to visit, but to connect with people. It's about a relationship. And that kind of personified to me, if I would pick one example, and this is honestly, that could really express the heart of God in this relationship that God has spoken about Jews and Gentiles. And it personified is this, because it's when our children see the love that you guys come with, and you love on them, even though your language is limited in Hebrew, they could see it through your eyes, they could see it through your hand, they could see it through your heart of service. It's impacted them a big time. And it's given our children the vision to see, wow, God is bigger than, the small nation, that because we are a minority in Israel. And so part of our desire to connect our children to come and be in the camp is to show them you are part of a bigger picture. Mm-hmm. You're part of something bigger, and it's not just small. So to see that in connection to the camp is huge. So yes, there are some challenges with language and challenges with logistics, but it just bypasses because the benefit is so much more. The only challenge I could say is I wish we could do more of it.
Yeah, that's good. Switching gears here a little bit. I know you just finished an outreach. You were telling me about it earlier. To Ukrainian refugees, I think, but within this idea of having a kingdom impact on your neighbors and the people next to you, we've been talking about that recently at Beltway this year, and so I'm wondering, what are some examples of how you bless those neighbors, including the Ukrainian refugees that you've been working with recently, but maybe some other examples.
Well, Tents of Mercy in its inception has always been active in providing aid and help for the society. We just don't want to be a congregation that just worship on Shabbat and goes home. We want to be effective in society. In book of Jeremiah, God speaks through Jeremiah. He says, the place that I've put you in the Babylon, I want you to live with them, marry, have children. And then he says, pray for the peace of the city that I've put you in.
Yeah.
And in a way, how do you pray for a city? It's not just the peace of the city that there won't be, crimes, or it's really the peace, the understanding there is peace, meaning coming from the Prince of Peace in the city. And so we found that sense of mercy to be active in society is to help those in need. And living in Israel, we know the issue of crisis is always a matter of time. It's not if, it's when crisis will hit. And so we've embraced this identity, just like Joseph had, that in times of need we want to be able to be helpful to people in need. But then there's when the crisis comes, like the Ukrainian refugees that have come, or the Lebanon war that we've had in the past, we found those as opportunities to reach to the community. And so we're so thankful that God has given us favor with the city to work with them in such an open way, with the city and the government of our town in Kiryat Yam and even the surrounding cluster of towns. So this is our vision, that we want to be reaching out in a practical way to show the love of Yeshua in our city.
What are some practical ways that you've helped the refugees? I mean, what'd you do? What do you?
Well, we've visited many of them in their homes. They've come to our building. They already receive our number and our address for the building. They come to us, and so beginning from sharing of their experiences to our team, and then going on a practical need, whatever they need in their home, whether it's kitchen utensils or home appliances, and whatever we have, we give. We've gone to people's home and provided and fixed stuff in their home. But now we also are doing, in the midst of doing a basic kit project that we're embracing 60 families from the Ukrainian family and then providing them with just basic kitchen appliances. You guys have been part of this through the support that you've given us, and this has been a huge blessing for us to be able to provide. One of the ways that we can show Yeshua's love in our people is to show them that the love of Yeshua comes from Christians around the world. And this is one of the ways, because the city knows that we as a community are not able to do what we do unless there are people joining their hands and hearts with us. And so it's been a way for us to show Yeshua's love in our city by doing such things. And so very effective ministry that we have with that.
That's great. That's really awesome. I loved when you were talking about the kits that you guys have put together for them. I know that the Ukrainian refugees are in a lot of countries, and it's just amazing the number that have had to flee. And so, like we were talking about earlier, just this opportunity in the midst of a crisis to show the love and peace of Jesus. And so, I really love what you guys are doing with that.
We're grateful.
Switching gears a little bit, talk to us about how you are equipping, youth, young adults, families, to face darkness, to bless our neighbors, to shine the light of Yeshua.
Well, that's one of our also highlights in ministry. Is we have a slogan. We say, "We live for the next generation."
Good.
Because I'm a new immigrant from Ethiopia. I say new immigrant, even though I've been here for the last 30 years. Still, when I speak Hebrew, it's still an effort. I go through different languages in my mind to get to Hebrew. But our children have been born here. They speak the language. They're very ripe and ready to embrace Yeshua in his native language, but be able to be effective in communicating the gospel to the people. So we try to make the gospel, the scriptures, as applicable and relevant to them. And so we try to reach out through. We have a weekly meeting with the youth. We have camps that we do. It's called it's a national youth camp called Katsir. Eitan leads that primarily. And we have a special meeting where we have the soldiers. In Israel, the army service is a very central part of growing up. So before you go to the army in the youth age, we invest a lot of time in building the foundation of faith and discipleship. But once they go to the army, a lot of what they have gone through comes into practice. And then when they come out from the army, we kind of try to build back the things that they have lost maybe, or things that they have been struggling with. So we divide those two groups, the youth and the young adults, and try to invest a lot of time just, reaching out to them. Thankfully, our young adults are the ones who are leading us in worship. They are the ones who are serving the most in the community. So we're very grateful to see a lot of fruit in that. But that's the focus and the heart of what we do as a community.
Well, one of the things we're going to do, we're going to kind of have a little bit of a sweet surprise. We actually have Avi Shalom's son, Mati, one of his kids, sitting here with us tonight. And I leaned over and whispered in his ear, "Would you be willing to talk?" And so he actually said, "Yeah, that he would." And it's been a real joy. I've known Mati since he was little boy, and he has grown into a fine young godly man. And so I really I thought it'd be kind of special and sweet to be able to hear from the youth, and us not just speaking about them, but to actually hear from one who has grown up here in the land and has grown up in our camp, and just to maybe hear a little bit. Tell us a little bit what life is like for you, Monty, as even as a believer in Israel, what life is like in Israel. Let's start there, and then we'll talk about camp for just a second.
All right. Well, it can be interesting because as a person who's also a Jewish boy and also from different cultures in general, also, it can be interesting because you can also tell all your friends, if you meet other people in class or in stuff like that, you tell them about that culture and about that faith and belief of Yeshua. And it can get interesting. And I can honestly say that as a little boy, I didn't really understand that. Like in terms of faith and stuff, I didn't really understand Yeshua. And as I got older, I understood more, and I grew to be in love with him. And so growing in that faith and growing in this place, which is beautiful, and I've grown to love it, and I've grown to just feel free to be who I am and love him, and it's just amazing. I love it.
Well, and it really is evident. I watched this even this week as we've had camp and watched you minister and serve. And it's been obvious that you've done that because of who Christ is in you, who Yeshua is in you. Tell us a little bit about camp. How old were you when you first came to camp? And tell us a little bit about some of your experiences, and maybe like what was the thing you enjoyed the most? What was impactful for you? Some of those kind of things.
Well, you normally join camp at around towards the end of second grade, and as I have siblings, and they joined it even before me, and I was really looking forward to it when I first joined it, and it was everything I imagined, really. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. I got to hear about God even more in fun ways and games and stuff like that. Even when I had family around me, it was really, really nice, even without family. And the people from Beltway, which it was a very nice addition. I felt like, I don't think I knew that at the time, that they would come and help and clean. Now that I realize that, of all the hard work and all the stuff they left behind in America and in Texas, and it's a blessing to me, I feel like. And my experience in camp has always been a blessing, and I always enjoyed it. And it was always fun, I feel like.
Well, Monty, I want to say I'm glad you came in with us tonight, and just how proud I am of you. And it's been incredible watching you through the years grow. You've always had a tenderness toward Yeshua at a young age, and now through the years, I've been able, as I come back year after year, it's been fun to watch that and see that growth in you. And it just reminds me, the word says, he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. And we have watched you in that journey, and it's a real joy. And hearing your testimony, seeing your life, it even blesses us that we get to come and just be a part and to watch that. And people, I wish you could see the look on Avi Shalom's face as he looks at his son and just sees a righteous pride in seeing who you are, and a fine young man. So we're just proud of you, man.
Thank you.
Well, Avi Shalom, one of our last questions. We'll ask how we can pray for you at the end and make sure our people are praying for tents of mercy and all that you're doing. So be thinking about that. But we are in a spiritual growth campaign called The Restful Life. And so 8 weeks diving into the reality that we as followers of Jesus are called to live a life of rest. And honestly, it feels like Jewish people are way better at this than American people are. And so we thought, hey, we've got you. We're in the land. Why not ask this question? Yeah. So, and we could be wrong about some cultural, things I'm talking about. But I know for my culture, American culture, it's a culture of busyness. And so, how does that contrast, or how have you figured out in your life how to live that life of rest that Yeshua came to bring?
Well, I think God, rightly so, gave a special commandment to the Jewish people to rest. I think he knew we needed it the most. I think Israel, in a sense, is a very tense country. We are surrounded in neighborhood that most of them want us to diminish or non-exist. But in a way that God instilled it in the fabric of the society by commandment to rest. I think it speaks of his love to all of us to rest, but also it's an invitation to grow in life, because rest is not necessarily, we think sometimes, and this is the struggle that we have to go when we come into Shabbat rest, for instance. The most difficult thing that we can do is rest, because before we enter into the Shabbat rest, there's a lot of things that we could have done during the week, we should have done, we wanted to finish, we never finished, things that are open-ended. And you feel like, if I just did one more thing, if I just made that call, if I just sent out that email, you think you would go to it to rest well. But it just shows you that rest is not necessarily finishing and completing a job. It's trusting God. And in a way, God instructed us to rest by commandment and even by timing. When the sun goes down, we are commanded to rest. And in Israel, the thing that makes it a little bit more easier, it's because, it's in the fabric of the society, and so the buses stop running, the shops close, things that you would do on a normal day. They will all send you the message, this is Shabbat. And then at home, we have this separation ceremony that we do, a separation from the week to the Shabbat. We call it the receiving of the Shabbat, or receiving the Queen Shabbat into our home. And we exercise that. In our family, we literally try to do something to break the mold of the week, the busyness of the week. Before we come to dinner, sometimes we don't talk. Sometimes not talking helps us, because, speaking is exerting energy. Sometimes we use words to create things, to do things. God created things through words. And maybe that was how he entered into Shabbat, by not speaking, because every time he spoke, he created something. So in a way, we do something to break and to commemorate. This is a time that we're commanded to rest. And it takes a while, but once you enter into the Shabbat rest, literally the word Shabbat means to sit, but not just to sit down to take a break, to sit and dwell in the presence of God. And so I think it's a blessing in Israel that it is part of the society fabric, but in a way, we need it. As a people, I think I'm so grateful that we have Shabbat, because during the week everybody's going crazy and very busy, but Shabbat is really a time where you can sense that the atmosphere changes. And so I think it's a good practice for any one of us to have a day where we separate ourselves and our time for the Lord, and dedicate it to rest before Him.
So what would the consequences of living a life without Shabbat or Sabbath, what would that look like? I hear you talking about the benefits, and maybe you can jump in on some more benefits if you want, but imagine life without Shabbat, without that Shabbat rhythm, at least. What are the consequences of living without resting?
I think it robs us of our intimate knowledge of God.
Okay.
I think it could rob us of our health, obviously, by being burnt out, and we've experienced. I've experienced it numerous times, but it always brings me back to that importance, and it's an inheritance that we have from Yeshua. He is the Prince of Peace. He's given us peace. He's inviting us to come and dwell in His peace, and so it could rob us of our health. It could rob us of our knowledge and intimate knowledge of God, but it also robs us of of knowing the place of God in our lives. The story when Miriam and Martha hosted Yeshua in their home, and I find myself many times identifying with Martha, who was working, making coffee, cooking, and this is Yeshua we're talking about. He's in my house. Come on,
get it ready.
But then the only thing he wanted was an intimate relationship, and I think it's a beautiful thing to come to that realization and say, all God wants me is to be intimately available for Him through rest. And so if we don't experience that, I think we will be robbed of a rich inheritance that we have in Yeshua.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we so respect, just your following of the Shabbat rhythm, and we're hoping that through this series, the people at Beltway will also, jump into that and see that. And it really is all about that word you used inheritance. It's about, what God has given us that we get to walk in. It's a reward. It's a good thing. It's not a law that's difficult, but it was made for us in order for us to know God more. So we really appreciate your time today, spending time with us. But like I said, one more question. How can our friends, our believers, other believers in the States, the people of Beltway, be praying for your family, for Tents of Mercy, and for Israel?
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to kind of chat with you, and through you to reach to the whole family and communities of Beltway. Just want to say thank you for your love and your continued friendship with us. We're very, very grateful at Tents of Mercy. Our prayer need during this season, as maybe it might be related to many people, it's the BC, the before Corona and after Corona experience. I think we have experienced as a community a lot of shifting, and we feel right now we're posed as at an opportunity stage where we are reaching out to new people in the congregation, new people outside. We have seen more and more people come to the congregation through our media services and things like that. And so I think it's a time that we have to find a renewed vision and how to community-wise, how to really mobilize our community back together, and then reach out the lost that we have. So please pray that we will be effective in doing that. Our humanitarian aid work has been very full and busy. We just want to continue to be doing that. Even during the Corona season, it's been the most active part of it. So we're thankful for that, but we continue to do that. Pray for our young people. Many of our young people during the army times and during this season have been affected by that. So we would appreciate your prayers for them. We want to see them come up and lead. We want to see leaders come up in our community. So we would appreciate your prayers on that. And we're seeing great things ahead of us. Like Yeshua said, pray for the workers to come to the big harvest that we have ahead of us.
Pray for the workers. Yeah, absolutely. What about your family? Now you have a daughter maybe who's in the military stage of her life, so maybe we can pray for her specifically. But what are some other things we can pray for your family?
Well, we are actually at a time where we're finally going to take some time off. We talked about rest. It's been a while since we have done that. It's been a very busy season for us during this couple of years, and so we are going out on a vacation, hopefully at the end of the summer. So we're very happy. Our daughter will be joining us as well. She has a special permission to leave from the army to come with us and vacation with us. We're very blessed. Our children are all doing well in the Lord and doing well at school, and we'll look great things ahead. I'm so thankful. Please pray for my wife as well, who's leading the women's ministry and the children's ministry. Very grateful.
Hannah. We'll be praying for you guys. And
thank you.
We are honored to be a small part of what God is doing in and through you. And just know that we love you. We're praying for you. Randy, thank you so much for leading the way these last however many years.
Bunch of years.
60, I think. No, 20.
And many more to come.
and many years to
God.
come.
Yeah.
So it's been just an awesome example of what God can do as we find unity and partner together. So we really appreciate you. If you're listening now and you are a giver at Beltway, we want to say thank you for your generosity. It's because of your generosity that we're able to partner with partners like Tents of Mercy and Avi Shalom and all that we do here in Israel. So thank you for that. God bless.
God bless. We love you. Thank you, guys.
Didn't I tell you? How amazing is it to hear about what God is up to in Israel? How nations are truly being blessed through the nation of Israel right now. I mean, you don't get that in the news reports today. It's also so very critical for us as believers to connect to the promises of God for the Jewish people. Remember, those who bless Israel will also be blessed. Will y'all join us in praying for the nation of Israel, for peace in the city, for Tents of Mercy as they continue to bless their neighbors through humanitarian efforts? Let's pray for the lost, for their eyes to be open to see Jesus as Messiah. Let's pray for their leaders, their youth, their families, and for those who are in the army. Oh, it's incredible to see what God is doing in Israel. It's also super fun to hear about ways in which we can partner in unity for the sake of the gospel. If you want to learn more about Tents of Mercy, check out the show notes for links there. I'm also so thankful for Avi's perspective on Shabbat. How cool was it to hear from someone who lives in the land among Jewish people talk about the way in which Shabbat is woven into the fabric of their society? But they still fight the culture thing too, of busyness and tension. But did you hear what Shabbat is? It's an invitation to grow. I love that, to sit and dwell in his presence, which is what Shabbat means. Entering into this rest takes trusting God, I know, but we need it. So I'm going to ask you, how can you break the mold of your week this week? When will you Shabbat? When will you stop, sit, and dwell? Don't let the current culture rob you of this inheritance. It is yours. It's your reward, and it is for you to enjoy. Thanks so much for listening today. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. We have a new one each week. And also, we want to invite you to follow along with our sermon series, The Restful Life, by subscribing to Beltway Park Church on YouTube, or join us in person at one of our physical campuses or at live.beltway.org. We hope you guys have a wonderful week. Be blessed, and remember, God is moving, and he's moving in your life too, beyond Sundays.